Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody is having a happy and a healthy day. If you've ever worked with me or you've ever watched any of my videos, you know I talk a lot about intuition. And I get questions about what the hell actually is our intuition. So I'm going to get to that in a second. But I want to tell you this first off. So this week we've talked a lot about the ego. So the ego, as we've defined, is kind of the narrative that we have about ourselves that mostly was developed in childhood and then validated through our different behavior patterns as we grow and become adults. It's that voice that kind of tells us that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're always going to be alone, all of these detrimental things that then drive our behavior because we have these irrational thoughts. That's our ego. Well, our intuition is the counter to that because ego is really rooted in fear. Intuition is rooted in freedom and peace to drive us away from the things that we fear because fear is just man-made in our head. Danger is real, fear is not. So our intuition is 100% always undefeated, okay? Your intuition is undefeated, never been scored upon, always has been right. When I coach people and we go through very, very, very difficult situations, trust me when I say some of the things that are told to me are very detrimental things that it's unspeakable of we're humans, okay? It's the human condition. Things right now are going on that are just unspeakable and despicable in my regard. But they don't have to always be that dramatic to have an effect. And that's one thing that I think sometimes we don't honor about ourselves, that we can't compare traumas, okay? We've all had traumas, every single person on this earth. It's just part of the world, okay? We've all had them at some level. And comparing them and saying, well, just because, mine's not as bad as that guy's over there, so I can see why, but I don't understand why I'm so sad or I'm this. We got to throw that out, okay? Honor yourself. Do not compare. But your intuition is always right. And when I coach people, we'll get into where they recognize, I had a feeling that this wasn't right. Something wasn't right about this scenario. I ignored it. And thus I went through with it. There's where the cycle comes of the shame and the guilt because we knew that it wasn't right. It ended up being not right. And then we end up suffering for it, not always just because of the event, but partly because we knew it wasn't right. We participated anyway. We did whatever it was that we did. And now we have the shame and the guilt because of it. And we constantly are shaming and guilting ourselves to where we're going to shy away from certain situations because this happened and I don't want to feel this shame and guilt again. Or even worse, we repeat the same pattern over and over and over again, even though we know it's not right. And again, that's the ego talking. The ego telling you that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve a certain person in your life, that you don't deserve a certain whatever, okay? Constantly on your shoulder, yapping at you, talking a bunch of bullshit. So what's the difference between your intuition and a feeling that you may have? So most gurus will define it as this, and this is one of the ways that I feel like is best described. So if you feel it in your stomach, it's your intuition, okay? If you feel it in your chest, it's fear. So again, if you just use that right there as just your descriptor of the difference between what fear is and what your intuition is, because your intuition doesn't have anything to do with fear. It's your guidance system. It's always right. It was given to you at birth from the heavens above, the universe, God, Allah, Moses. Use whatever religious or non-religious figure you would like to. Insert it right here. It was given to you as your guidance system to protect you. Fear does not protect. Intuition protects. So if you feel it in your stomach, it's your intuition. If you feel it in your chest, it's fear. It's your guidance system given to you by whomever. So my encouragement to you is the next time you're in a situation and you feel it in the pit of your stomach, this ain't right. You've been here before. You know what happens. This is at the point where you get curious. This is when you start asking yourself questions. And you take it upon yourself to question your ego, to get curious about your ego, to get curious about your intuition, and then walk away from the scenario. Because you are right 100% of the time, always. Because that's what's given to you. It's undefeated. And it always will be that way. That's the difference between the two. One of the things that I think happens with people who've had a lot of different traumatic events is they start to question this scenario. Is this my ego? Is this fear talking? Is this my intuition talking? I'm getting super confused. And that's one of the things I feel like I help people the most with, is recognizing the difference between the two. So therefore, we walk into our power instead of being powerless. We walk into our freedom instead of walking into our fear. And that's really the difference between the two. So if this interests you, and this is something you would like to talk about with me, I have a coaching program. I coach people. This has nothing to do with fitness. This is a whole nother realm, a whole nother level of things that I feel like can really dissolve and bust that ego so that we are more at peace and have more freedom and less constraints, less shit talking in our brain given to us by our ego, so that we're more at peace, more at ease, instead of being at dis-ease, which is going to create disease. Drop it in the comment section. Message me directly. Would love to have a conversation with you. Buff Gandhi.